Munchausen by proxy, once an obscure medical term, is now taking center stage in the media. The story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard made national news. A mother accused of medically abusing her own daughter, faking diseases, confining her to a wheelchair. This real-life horror story inspired a documentary, TV series, and even got the attention of Dr. Phil.
Your mother kept you in a wheelchair. She kept you on a feeding tube.
She said I had muscular dystrophy.
You know now she was making all of that up.
She told me if I was to contact anybody and tell them, she would take a hammer to my fingers. I just didn't understand why my teeth were falling out.
You know now you didn't need to be in that wheelchair. You know now she was making all of that up.
My mother told the doctors that I couldn't eat, so they put a permanent feeding tube in. My mother told the doctors she's got the mind of like a child.
There's a good chance that this mother is making this child sick on purpose. You had a boyfriend. Did you ask him to kill your mother?
Yes. I wish I wouldn't have done any of that.
Gypsy Rose's story is real, yet still unbelievable. Dr. Judy, can you talk a little bit about what exactly Munchausen by proxy is, how common it might be?
So Munchausen by proxy is an illness where the person who's the perpetrator will try to impose an illness on another person, usually somebody that's in their care. And they can actually impose this illness by inducing symptoms or doing things to actually physically make the person sick, or they can just falsify things very dramatic in their presentation. And oftentimes it's very hard to know this because they switch doctors, they move, so it's hard to keep track of the medical records themselves. And I think a really important part of this is that we don't have good prevalence rates because people are not coming forward and saying, this is what I'm doing to my child. So what we guess, though, is that in hospital settings, it's probably about 1%. So it's not that uncommon, but it is somewhat rare.
You mentioned maybe a parent showing concern, but there are certain characteristics, maybe too much concern, maybe
That's right.
some red flags that these individuals exhibit.
Absolutely. So one of the red flags is that they're very dramatic in their presentation of the child or whoever they're taking care of their symptoms. They are very dramatic in the language that they use. They like to sort of be a medical marvel, some kind of medical mystery, yes. And there is a very controlling aspect where they will not allow you access to the patient without them being present. And oftentimes they actually do come with some medical knowledge of their own. Either they've been very well studied, they're a graduate student, or maybe they're even in the medical profession somehow, because it makes it easier for them to falsify these symptoms in a way that kind of makes sense. But a huge telltale sign is when what they're saying just doesn't match up to the medical and diagnostic testing.